Good morning, everyone. Good day, good afternoon, greetings. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you're here. Welcome back, everyone. A couple days off, a weekend. If it's not your weekend, that's okay. It's my weekend on the actual weekend. So we're coming back and kind of getting back into the swing of things. So how is everyone? How are you doing? Oh, it stopped recording. So if you're following me on BitChute, my apologies for the technical difficulties that cut off the beginning and the intro to all of this. But either way, I caught it soon enough, so you'll get the bulk of the material. So how is everyone doing? It's Monday, January 24th. We got some surprise snow here last night, and it feels like some surprises. It does actually feel that way. Some unintended things maybe coming forward. Other things that were probably very predictable, but we just chose not to focus on them. But here, I want to show you the surprise snow. We already had snow here to begin with, but I just wanted to show you my front porch area from my front porch this morning, which was probably another 6 inches of snow. This is kind of unusual for where I am. At least it has been in the last couple of years, as far as I understand it. I haven't lived here over a winter in like 15 years, so I'm not entirely sure, but my understanding is that this is a little bit out of character, and it wasn't forecasted to be this much snow, which I think is very interesting. So anyway, that is morning snow surprise. How's everyone doing? Any surprises on your end? What's going on for you? So it does. We had some interesting. There's so much happening and so much seems like it's been transpiring over the weekend. It's really hard to keep up. And so the best thing we can do is just track the astrology. I did actually pull some cards for today. I haven't done that in a number of weeks. I just haven't felt really called to do it, but it did seem like checking in at that level, symbolically, archetypally, just images, right? And letting those types of things start swirling around seemed like it was important. So I'll be sharing that with you as well, going over the astrology. Tomorrow is our third quarter moon squaring the sun. So I'm going to start releasing horoscope astrology per sign for the new moon that's coming up. We'll release a weekly astrology report in general for the last lunar quarter and go into the specifics because just looking at the week, we had Mercury and the Sun in Aquarius. They met yesterday, and now they've kind of gone their separate ways in this crisscross pattern, right? Mercury's still retrograde. It's going to be moving back into Capricorn this week. The Sun in Aquarius. This is the time of year that it becomes very difficult for people to really keep that fire burning within themselves, right? This is the opposite sign of rulership of the sun, which is Leo. And so to be in Aquarius, this is at its detriment. The sun is a luminary. It's at its detriment, meaning it's in the sign that is opposite of its home territory and the area where it is the most powerful. And so above all, we need to be able to trust ourselves primarily and to find whatever we need to do or can do to keep that fire ignited. And we're going to see in the reading today that is somewhere we can really root ourselves and the purpose behind it, right? Which is purification, which is, catalyzing a reaction in some way, right? The hearth fire that Vesta, the asteroid Vesta and the goddess Vesta represents is that which is the power of our own transformation. And if we can keep that at the root and understand and have a trajectory, have a focus and intention for that fire, then the possibility for transmutation, for emergence as like a phoenix rising is very, very high. But it does require that we're actually taking the time and the initiative to embrace the growth and fertility process within ourselves, right? I can't stress enough how important this continues to be. And as more and more of the sky seems to move into areas of the chart astrologically that have to do with the collective and what's going on at a social political level, what's going on at a social organizational level, what's going on at a social spiritual level with Pisces, right? Neptune being involved, Pallas Athena in Pisces. there's a lot that is drawing so much of our attention and our energy and our focus into these areas, and will continue to do so, which is the case every year, seasonally, right? When you have the sun and usually Mercury not far behind, in the areas of Aquarius and Pisces, Capricorn. These are even Sag and Scorpio. So the moon's going to be, man, it's going to be fighting everything that the moon connects to today as she moves through Libra and comes into Scorpio. All of that Libra time it's going to meet challenge every step of the way. There's seemingly no major harmonious aspects with our moon today in later Libra until the moon comes into Scorpio and has a sextile. Mars is now in Capricorn. So we're going to draw attention to that. That's a big part of the reading today. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It is in not its home territory, but in a place that it's really familiar with. This is a great position for Mars when you have a goal that you want to be putting energy into. And this is why I stress that know thyself, know what your path is, or do what you know works in order to gain clarity about those things. Or if you're in a position where you're meant to really just surrender and trust, because we all have different lessons to be learning for our soul's growth at any given time. But knowing that is going to be a lot, the energy that will be projected out through Mars, right? The warrior energy, the spark of life, the creative spark that we all hold as just a seed point is going to have a direction and a focus and a goal and an ambition. And this is a good place to put this energy and then to bring it back in on ourselves. I really do feel like that to lose sight of that aspect is going to be a real detriment, right? And there's a lot out there that would love to pull us all into a strictly collective focus. And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't be focused on unification and coming together as a planet and as humanity and making decisions about what we're going to do moving forward. But we can't lose sight of ourselves in terms of our own development and our own evolution spiritually and mentally and emotionally. This is all really important to keep our focus on, at least partially, so that we don't get caught up in what is such an obvious, to me at least, such an obvious pivot in so many different ways. And some more things are being exposed as a result of this. Other things are being put into position that have been planned. It's just too convenient with the astrology to assume that there's no plan in place to harness that energy in terms of major pivots, right? Unless you want to believe or ascribe to the idea that the astrology and these transits actually make us do things, in which case then it is completely fated and we don't have any free will, which I don't believe, and I don't think anybody really believes that's watching this content. But anyway, I digress. There's a lot of content that I want to cover here in Monday in a check-in. So let's check in with the chat here. I'm actually not even sure of how I'm doing. So I'd say foggy, apprehensive for some reason. Oh boy, I love this part of it because this is where we all check in with each other and we're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling that too. Oh yeah, I'm feeling that too. Oh wow, I'm feeling that too. I feel the same thing, like apprehensive. Something is really just like, whoa, what is happening? Surprises came last week. Glad cards are coming. In a lull right now, absorbing and digesting everything that's come in. It's good to see you. It's good to see you too. And so many levels are intersecting right now. Yes, I would agree with that as well. And I think that this is why, again, it's so very important that we are staying grounded, staying focused on what we are here to do, making sure that we don't lose that fire within us. Remember, Mercury is still retrograde, and I drew a lot of attention to this on Friday with the weekend astrology transmission because it's it was in the meeting of Mercury and the Sun yesterday in Aquarius that really illuminated some sort of maybe cognitive process, maybe illuminated some information, maybe just the process of our nervous system in general received some sort of upgrade or information, or just more energy, right? More combust energy from the sun, but it really is still retrograde. And we're going back over our own nervous system in the case of maybe a crisis, right? This is 2 degrees of Aquarius. This is really where Mercury is going to be spending a lot of today, is in this particular degree, right? What is it that we actually have to sustain us in the event of something major that we can't actually control? And that comes through how strong is the human collective in general. And for all that we create as human civilization, nature will just take right away. And I think that this is a really great segue actually into something that I want to talk about. So there's a couple threads here that I'm going to weave together today. So I'll bring the cards out too, and we'll look at the astrology of today. And like I said, the moon is in Libra, and it's just full of challenge, right? There's quincunxes to all of the Pisces energy. There's squares to the Capricorn energy. The moon will be meeting Spica and Arcturus, so there will be some starseed activation there in the midst of the tense and uncomfortable aspects of squares, right? So we'll be that more specifically with the chart, but this is what I want to talk about here in terms of unexpected events, right? In terms of nature, natural law, and what it really means, and how we address those things. This is why all of this Pleiadian energy is so important to really get into and figure out and practice communing with at an energetic level. So, and that's all in the Pleiadian revival video. I'll be linking to that at the end of this video when it's live on YouTube. I can't link anything at the end until 24 hours, and you can't see the chat for 24 hours. So, but it'll be there. So I'm not going to go over all of the Pleiadian aspect and how important it is to make a relationship with that part of ourselves right now, because it's a big part of what's going to, I think, carry us through the next couple of months. But what I want to share with you right now is something that's very interesting. So Black Moon Lilith is in Cancer right now. So let's look at the chart real quick, just so I can bring this point up in some sort of visual fashion. And that's, we already looked at that. Here we go. Oops. All right, guys. So what I want to point out is, what I want to point out here is Black Moon Lilith is in Cancer. And what we are also looking at is that there's very few planets, objects, luminaries, whatever, that are at the bottom of the chart, meaning that they're in signs that relate to the individual consciousness, okay? We have Chiron in Aries that is just getting all of us to the very core of our selfhood and having us, really grapple with and work with the wounds of identity and inner child wounds and shame and guilt for just being ourselves and being here on this planet. And this is all going to weave together. Okay, so there's Chiron there, Uranus in Taurus, right? Literally shifting the landscape of physical material reality, what is valuable and worthy to us in a very material sense. Of course, now we have the North Node in conjunction with the Pleiades, so our souls journey is being pulled in also the direction of the Pleiades, of the nature of being in communion with nature, right? The physical aspect of reality, the value-oriented aspect of reality, the feminine aspect in terms of the fertility, the soil itself, all of these Pleiadian and Taurus aspects. And then you have Lilith, right? Everything else is sitting at the top of the chart, including the South Node. There's a strong connection to the South Node because it represents, soul mastery. So it's familiar territory to us. And a lot of times we find ourselves sliding back to the tail of the dragon, and even maybe letting go because that's what we are familiar with and we don't want to leave it behind. But this is part of the soul's evolution. We're always growing. There's nothing static here in the universe and probably the multiverse. I can only speak about this universe. But I would venture to guess that, the laws of chaos are probably the same. Anyway, so most of everything, including the moon, are sitting at the top of the chart in signs that have to do with other and our relationship with other. And this is where a lot of the focus is drawing us. And that makes sense. We are talking about our, collective evolution and what's going to be transpiring at a collective, social, relational level, right? But there's no getting away from it. But we do have these aspects down here that have to do with the individual consciousness unfolding. And when we're talking about Western or tropical astrology, we really are talking much more about the consciousness and its evolution, because the way that the sky is sectioned up is about geometry and math. And that's way more about it's less predictive, I would say, and more in terms of like mundane and actual time-based events, and more based on the sacred geometry of the universe and the energy that it holds and what that actually means and what it means for us. Anyway, I could go on about that forever. So we have Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, right? And this is what I want to talk about. So I've brought up Lilith a few times here and there about the sacred blueprint, right? Lilith is the original blueprint of the sacred feminine, the divine feminine, the sacred blueprint of the feminine from this planet, right? Maybe not entirely from this planet, but the original blueprint of the human that was meant to be here and to live in communion with the planet and to grow along with it, right? So Lilith is related to Ishtar, Isis, right? These types of feminine, dark feminine, or more like priestess energy in various cultures and mythologies. But for the sake of astrology, we're looking at Black Moon Lilith as that primal part of ourselves that connects us to everything else in terms of a planetary history, in terms of our own genetic ancestry. And it is very primal. It's very animalistic. And it's something that's deeper than even our own subconscious. Now, she's in Cancer, right? This is about protection. This is about protection of home and family. This is about the containment system of a group or a family, or even your own inner life that holds you and contains you and protects. And this is why it's home and family. This is of origin. This is why it's a marriage, right? These are the bonds of a situation where we gather our own power and consolidate it in Cancer. So this is where Black Moon Lilith is right now. So while there's a lot of attention and a lot of draw with the Sun and Mercury and Venus and Mars and Pluto and Jupiter and Neptune and even the Moon right now, all in areas that have to do with the larger social context and our role within it, you have a couple of these really either very, very deep, very stinging, and very trickster-oriented in terms of who we are. So, Lilith. Now, this is just an aside, but it really is a good way for me to bring up a topic that I think we need to be very literate about on some level, right? So I want to share this with you. So this is called The Adam and Eve Story, The History of Cataclysms Uncensored by Chan Thomas. I really, really, really recommend this book. It's written in a way that is very easy to understand, but it's also very scientifically based. Chan Thomas is a scientist. And this was a CIA document. Like it's my understanding that he wrote it as something to submit. And it was also classified for a long time. And I don't know if that's because it was written for the CIA and that's protocol, or if they really didn't want people to read this. So I would recommend that you read this. This is, I got this on the Kindle for $10. It's really, really worth it. And it's information that I think that we all really need to, like I said, become literate in, so we understand, a much larger context for what is happening right now. So in this book, he talks about how the cataclysm, there's a cataclysm from like 10,000 BC that, wiped everything out. And this is the Adam and Eve story, comes after this. And then there's another one that comes about 6,000 years ago, roughly. And that was the Noah flood. And basing this in actual, all the things that you'll find on Suspicious Observers, right? And he's referenced this many times, this book, about these aspects, and he brings the biblical things into the fray. So specifically, it is the Adam and Eve story. So in this book, Chan Thomas asserts or hypothesizes, I don't know if there's any way you could prove this, that, Lilith and Adam were the original, or they were the next iteration, they were the survivors of what probably would amount to the Atlantean-based cataclysm, whatever that was from, right? Either natural or created by us. His argument is definitely natural, a magnetic pole shift, right? That's basically what it says. And that is where this civilization was completely destroyed and buried. Adam and Lilith were the survivors, and they began the next iteration of humanoids and humans on this planet, but something happens to Lilith. Now in the Bible, I think it's in Isaiah that she's mentioned, but the idea is that she left because she didn't want to submit. Well, Chan Thomas asserts that Lilith died, and Eve is the daughter of Adam and Lilith, and it's through genetic manipulation. Well, that's my assertion. I'm not his assertion is that they actually created genetically and biologically with his own daughter to populate the rest of humanity. I don't believe that necessarily. I am under the belief, the idea, right, that this is where genetic manipulation from some other outside source comes into the picture, right? But I do think that Lilith is, in fact, the mother of Eve, and Eve is the daughter of Adam and Lilith, right? And this flies in the face of everything, right, of what we've been taught. So that's something to consider. And a very, very, very good friend of mine actually came to this same conclusion through her own vision. She didn't even know this book existed, right? That she had no idea this was something about Lilith and Eve and Adam that came to her through a vision, right? Through her own intuition, which also brings up how important it is that we are trusting ourselves and working on our own path of evolution, soul evolution, because it'll take us where we need to go in the larger scheme of things. And with Lilith involved, being in Cancer right now, being the original blueprint of the human race in some ways, before this, post-Diluvian, but pre-Noah, bloodlines, essentially, right? And it all comes back to the bloodlines, doesn't it? This is... but from a symbolic reference, right? From something symbolic and something archetypal and something that has much more to do with our connection to this blueprint and what it means for all of us, right? We all have this original connection to Lilith, and this is that part of ourselves that we can't really totally get rid of with our frontal lobe, and it's important that we acknowledge it. Well, in Cancer, there are going to be all kinds of connections. The first one is that the moon is going to square, our moon in Libra will square Lilith in Cancer, and then tomorrow or the next day, if it even happens, right? Because Lilith, this is true Lilith, not the average. Some people only follow the average, and that's okay. I use the true Lilith because that's more relevant and exact in terms of the daily oscillations or the weekly, right? It's going to station soon and then go retrograde, and then it'll station again and go direct because there's a wobble. And that's what it represents. So we can't let go of this part of ourselves. There's a strong urge to protect, right? There's something deeper. There's something so deep that wants to protect, that wants to contain, that wants to consolidate that power. And I think that with the moon in Libra, I think one of the biggest challenges today that we're going to face, especially if we go through and just look at all of the ways that the moon is going to be challenged by everything over here, for the most part today, and with the North Node in Cancer, you know how it is with the moon in Libra, or maybe don't. I don't know. Moon in Libra, right? We will do anything. Our emotional landscape can be transfigured so easily that we will apply what we know about ourselves in order to find some sort of emotional balance, either within ourselves or in our relationships or with just the world outside of us, right? Whatever it takes for us to shift around how we feel in order to find that balance. A moon in Libra, like we're feeling like we want to do that, and there's plenty of challenge along the way that we'll get into. And you can see here that Mars is in Capricorn now. So when the moon does come into Scorpio at 0 degrees, it will sextile to Mars. So I think that we're still kind of, what it feels like, people described it as a lull, or they're feeling apprehensive. It's just because I think that there is this shifting, this emotional and intuitive and inner feeling based back and forth within ourselves. And while we're just trying to figure that out, we're also having to account for or just experience all of the stuff that's going to be going on, right? So we have the quincunx with Neptune. We have there'll be a square with Pluto, right? Look at this. And then by the very end, you're going to see a yod. You're going to see a finger of God with the 0 degrees, and then the very last degree. That means that this is also right on, oh no, that's different. So these two will sextile each other, right? Mars rules Scorpio, and Aries, of course. Moon in Scorpio, this is where things get very deep. And so this is about claiming leadership and power based on our own output and our own goals and ambitions and the drive behind it in order to build on those things. But there has to be an initial claiming of leadership, even just within ourselves, and then or claiming our own place within some sort of social or institutional structure that we want to start putting our energy towards. And the moon at 0 degrees Scorpio, this I always call this degree the tour bus to hell, because that's what it is. It's like, all right, here we go. We're all going on this ride together, and it's a very it's that crack between worlds, 0 degrees. And it also is, we've applied everything we can to find that balance, especially with the moon in Libra. And we've come to a real understanding. Now it's time to actually put it into reality, or to start going into the depth of what that feels like. So there is something that can be very activating here, but it's the yod that we see with the North Node that is really going to, I think this is where we're really going to be able to, by the end of the day, like you can even see here, by the end of the day is when the moon goes into Scorpio. So it's just going to be a lot of apprehension and like just weird back and forth, and just not, feeling like you can settle on anything. That's what it seems like, or that you are constantly kind of moving your position within yourself. And that's okay, because Mercury, like I said, is retrograde right now, and we do want to be considering how we can use our mental faculties, our our actual nervous system, which is an electrical system, by the way, to handle ourselves when something unexpected happens. And where are we putting our energy, right? Where are we putting our output with Mars? That's going to be a big question. And so normally these things they would be in this quincunx, right? These two aspects of Scorpio, Gemini, it's still in conjunction with Alcyon at this point. this is way more about what's going on in the relational aspect and in terms of a group setting, a social setting, like who I am or who you are in relation to other, and what we're doing together, right? Where we're going together, what it feels like, and what we can do about it. What is not going to fit, but ultimately these two quincunxes are going to point us right to, again, this is our soul's destiny, which is a consummation of everything that has come, that has been put into place already, right? Taurus is about value and worth, but it doesn't come in a vacuum. You inherit those things that then grow from there. That's a lot of the second house. And so we can feel and put our energy behind this journey and these goals that we have with each other, and either in relationship or just in the social relationship in general. But it's going to be, there's an adjustment that's going to come as a result of also being very keenly aware of the direction of our soul's growth, which is less about doing anything right now, and other than preparing ourselves to hold this consummation that the North Node represents. And this is all part of the Pleiadian revival aspect. So this is very powerful by the end of today. So before we even get to this point, though, like I said, the moon is just going to be making all of those interesting and just really annoying aspects with everything else, as we are really, really, with the moon in Libra, it's very sincere of trying to no, okay, let me try this. Okay, no, maybe if I feel this way, let's see how this works. And as much as we each individually are trying to adapt to reality through this particular mode here of Libra, the bigger things that are going on in terms of the social political structure, and definitely in terms of the spiritual and karmic aspect of what we are going through, it's just going to irritate and agitate everybody the whole time. That's what it feels like. I woke up and I was just like, what is this? So when we get to the reading, which we can kind of move to now, but the one thing I did want to show with this square with the Libra moon and Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, this original blueprint, there is something so deep that we can't afford to let go of, and Lilith right now is drawing us into this place. And when we don't acknowledge the power of Lilith because we are ashamed of it, or it's stigmatized because it's so primal, right? And it's so much deeper than just like the technological advancement of humanity into civilization, right? This is so much more. This is our roots right here with Lilith. And we want to protect that. And a sense of also too, being part of something is enough to, and not being part of something can be enough to bring us to a sense of consolidated power and protection and our own personal power. And that's something to consider too, that if it is not acknowledged here with a sense of awareness, then we may find ourselves strictly just acting out in these really strange ways in terms of protection and loyalty and faithfulness, when it's not really warranted. And we could be so much more, we could be so much more effective if we were able to emotionally apply what we've learned so far, and find that and feel that balance within ourselves, as opposed to just kind of lashing out, or like almost, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like rabid almost, right, in Cancer. So that's just something to consider as well. what's interesting this week is that Venus is going to get so close to this trine with Uranus, but not before she stations direct. So she won't quite come into an exact trine, but you can see it's already really bold, a bold line. So it's pretty strong. So we'll talk about that as it gets closer. I think when Venus stations direct, that'll be a good time to really address that trine in its fullness. So let's look at the reading. Is that with where Lilith was Adam's first wife, but was internal? Felt like buffering the nervous system this weekend. Yeah, I totally felt that, like buffering. Like I was in total insulation mode. And in some ways, I feel like this surprise snow is just like, hey, like don't really go anywhere or do anything. Just stay. That was a different book. Something very genetically manipulative about taking the rib from Adam to make Eve, though. I totally agree. I think that that could very well have been it as well. And maybe it was like something harvested from Lilith and artificially fertilized, perhaps, because there is still the entrance, there's still the issue of the apple and the serpent and the complete unraveling of that, but that's for a different conversation. I think that there are so many different perspectives on this, and again, this is why it's so important to do your own research and trust yourself and know what that feels like, so that you can come to these conclusions that on your own, right? And we definitely talk to each other and we confirm with each other and we have subjective experiences that could be considered objective, perhaps, but it's important that we know what it feels like within ourselves when we are being deceived or when something is not quite right, or just be willing to entertain information that at first is just like, I don't want to listen to that. And then you're like, wait a minute, when you do listen to it and then you're like, wow, that doesn't add up with something else in this area, I'm going to explore that further and see what comes up. I mean, it's just never ending, but eventually, now that the nodes have come out of Gemini and Sagittarius, we're now in experiential mode, and it's going to be less about continuing to go down or to engage the mental constructs or even the higher mind as much as it is to better get into the feels and understand that rituals are binding. And I think that this is a big, wow, I'm getting a big like hit on this actually right now, is that rituals are binding, and it's in the process of coming from Libra to Scorpio that where the ritual becomes binding is in Scorpio, because it's through the feeling and the relationship and the power that is generated in the structured relationship or the structured form of the relationship, which is where this is the 7th house in Libra. And so as the moon is moving through that area of structured form, and I think we're trying to make sure that we're where we want to be. We want our scales to be balanced, and every trigger, every challenge is actually as obnoxious and as annoying and as frustrating as it is going to be today. We want to welcome the challenge in some ways. Even this square with Lilith is worth welcoming. This was, look at this. This was overnight. So I felt a lot of this agitation in my dream state with this square in particular. So, and everybody's different depending on what's going on for you, when you're awake, when you're asleep, how you experience a lot of these things. What I have found is that certain planets or certain objects will express themselves in very specific ways in my own experience. So that's another reason to get familiar with the chart and track what's going on, because you may find like, oh, certain moon transits, I have this type of experience, right? It's important to, then you know your own symbolic language. So even this square with the moon and Lilith is something that we want to welcome, because we want to be able to learn something from this friction. We want to be able to grow. We don't want to we want to confront challenge and not walk away if it means that we don't actually get to, grow or learn from it. So I feel like it will be agitating today, but when the moon gets to Scorpio, has that sextile, we're gonna feel there is something to work toward, and there's something to work toward together, and we can really feel into it. We can act on it for sure. Act on building and growing something, or have the ambition to structure something socially, institutionally, maybe just be in alignment with divine or natural law. That's the best case scenario here for Capricorn. And even with the tension with the North Node, I mean, we can acknowledge and feel into at a soul level where we're going and what that feels like and what that means. And we also can live in the here and now, and very much so with the moon and Mars is here and now. I mean, you're talking about some very very basic and fundamental experiences of being human, right? Our self-actualization that is exhibited by Mars as a symbol, and the moon, how we feel. So it really drives a lot of our behavior, moon and Mars. And so having those two come together at 0 degrees in that sextile, I mean, there is something to be working on together, and we can feel into it. But just know that the tension or the aggravation or just the sense of like something being off is that there's something to transmute there. There is something that is asking to be released in order for us to kind of, find the octave in some ways. And remember those quincunxes, as we see here with the moon, this yod or finger of God, those quincunxes are like the 7th to the 8th, right? It's the resolution of reaching the octave that allows that is the transmutation in some ways, but it's in this quincunx that the wild card or the need to adjust something is the most expressed, because this implies again like that there's some action or a relationship or a situation that will imply other. And this is very much about the individual areas of the consciousness and what our experience as individuals is at a soul level, this has all been, we are here at a consummation point, and everything that has developed so far is reaching some sort of climax or pinnacle. And we'll see this actually very strongly reflected in the reading for today. So I'll get into that right now, actually. I think this is usually it goes in a different direction, but it just wasn't going to be today. So I'm going to move this over here, and we'll get some good guidance here. Okay, so the Knight of Discs, Mars in Capricorn is definitely like our Knight of Discs for sure. Is in this reversal. We have the 9 of Discs as well, Venus in Virgo at the center, and this is really, again, this is about digging deep. This is about finding our power in the transformative power of fire. There's the eon that is our outcome. The lightning bolt has already happened, right? When it's reversed like this, the lightning bolt has already happened. We are now like cleaning up and setting new roots and starting new cycles. So, and it's interesting. This whole thing is interesting. So let's see here. All right, guys, we're going to start with our Knight of Discs. This is reversed. So, this is the fire of the earth, right? And so this individual is not using their warrior energy to fight a battle or an enemy. They're putting it towards farming and gathering in the right. This is about the fertile land. You can see that there is these concentric circles of the sun, right? And the sun is very much where this is coming from, Leo to Virgo, the Knight of Discs. So the helmet's back, right? There's no danger here. There is a harvesting tool here. Even the horse has got the head down, has got kind of like this really mellow look on the face, and is at ease, right? These are two individuals that are at ease coming into this moment. Now, the reversal is oftentimes some sort of inverted or negative or not fully expressed. But as we look at the rest of this reading, it's pretty clear that this is meant to be much more of this an internalized experience for all of us. We want to take this energy and turn it inwards towards us. We want to be our own Knight of Discs for our own growth, as in the fertile ground of our own soul, right? The fertile ground of our own existence and our own life. We want to turn this energy towards that. And this is, as a causal factor, especially with Mars in Capricorn. Again, this is a really good time to be aware of what it is that you want to promote in terms of your own energy. What are you going to put your energy into building? What are your goals, ambitions, and having the strength and the commitment behind to follow through and to actually build something that will be sustainable. It's got to be from the inside. We're still at this point now where collectively it seems like that we still need to be working from the inside out, right? I mean, it's always been this way, but right now it seems that's the case. There is a lull, and it feels manufactured in order to continue on with other aspects without as much attention drawn to it. So it's even more important that we are still putting our energy and our fire and our creativity towards our own process, that we don't let that go because it seems like things have shifted in a particular direction. So this is about the internalized fertility and the work towards that fertility that I think we really need to, we can't forget. We just cannot forget our relationship to this planet in so many ways right now, because it's going to be very easy to, it really is. So when we look at Venus in Virgo, or the Nine of Discs, or gain, which is the central point here, we see a culmination, right? This is about being very satisfied with what has been, accumulated, and what we have, the fruits of our labor are very much available for us to be satisfied with and to be sensitive to. So Venus in Virgo, the Nine of Discs, this is very much a culmination, a physical, material culmination that is, I would say, a direct result of the work of the Knight, right? The Knight of Discs has been doing the work, preparing the ground, doing the actual heavy lifting, right? Going around and maintaining what is there, doing the farm work, right? And the sun, right? The sun is what gives the plant, food. It's photosynthesis. And so again, putting the work in and conditioning the land, doing the farm work. And then you have Venus, which is the actual land itself, the bounty herself, the space in which the bounty is held, right? The cornucopia. That's what this is. And so we have this at the center here. There's something that gives us a physical, palpable sensitivity to what has been gathered as a result of the work we've been doing on ourselves in this moment. We don't want to lose sight of that, and I feel like that there is at least something. Remember, Venus does rule Libra too, and so the moon moving through Libra, I mean, there is a connection here with this card and with Libra, because that's the next stage, right? You go into Libra from Virgo, and this is where you balance the scales of what has been accumulated, what has been brought forward to bear. And at a social level, at a relational level, at any kind of ritual or binding level, this is where we make the offering and balance it out. And so I think that again, it's going to be all of these really challenging connections with the moon, especially in Libra today, and then culminating in that finger of God, or that yod, with Mars and Capricorn involved, of like, okay, this is everything that we've accumulated so far. And there's that 30 degrees of Taurus, right? Which is very Venusian and is referenced by a peacock, is very Venusian and connected to Venus, right? And so there is an accumulation, but it's at a soul level, and it might be a little bit more difficult to realize at a social level. And I think maybe the agitation with the moon in Libra, as it's making all of these connections, squares, and quincunxes all day, I think is going to be part of that. Is just like, what is it that I've actually accumulated and can apply to the situation? I think there will be something. It's at the center here. We can feel it. Everything that has worked so far. Now, here's Uriel and the Sphinx, and this is where we draw our power from. Remember Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. It's so much deeper than what we are being presented to on the surface of what's happening right now. We cannot, I just feel like that we don't want to lose touch with that genetic memory, right? Soul memory, something that is a deep blueprint of where we've come from, that gives us insight on how we can, move forward, or who we really are and what we can trust, right? That's the other thing about Cancer, is like, it's, trust is betrayed in the 8th house in Scorpio, which is, we'll talk about that tomorrow, I think, because this is going to be where the Scorpio moon squares in the Aquarius sun. So that's going to be a topic for tomorrow, I have a feeling, with that, especially that particular square. Oh boy. But here we are, Uriel and the Sphinx. Archangel Uriel is the fire of God. Fire of God is, responsible for those particular cataclysms. Uriel was able to communicate with those who were prepared to handle this knowledge, right? So this archangel is here to support as we dig under the Sphinx, the Akashic records, right? The idea that there's an ancient history that we don't even really know, and our mainstream certainly does not want to acknowledge, that the pyramids are way older, that the Sphinx is way older than the mainstream narrative. So this is where we draw our power, which is to dig down deeper into who we are, right? Our relationship with the planet, with the cosmos, with nature, rather than what is being presented to us as, human civilization. This is everything you can align with. This is going to be very hard with the sun in Aquarius right now. So this is why we want to draw our power, I would say, from this place. Number 21, breaks down to the 3. And so there is that very stable 3 energy that represents, the coming together of the polarity and reaching that peak, right? So this is a good place to be drawing our power from. At the center here, we have Venus in Virgo, or our 9 of discs. There's something that we can feel into and gain. And Venus is still in Capricorn. She's still retrograde in Capricorn. She's so close to being in a trine with Uranus that would literally split the world, or crack the world and be like, oh, there is something in there, right? That we never found before. That it's something that would happen with Uranus. Like, oops, look what you found here. Now that I've turned everything on its head, the world, there was a split or a crack in the earth, and something amazing just came up. But anyway, Venus in particular in Capricorn is in this degree that is, she's coming off of the degree of the new moon of the lunar cycle we're still in, and is in this position of really being willing to start investigating or looking into and discovering, what is normally hidden, but is still very much natural law. So again, there's this aspect here about going way deeper than what is being presented to us, deeper than even what we think is the deeper rabbit hole, right? Something that is embedded in our very genetics, something is embedded in our auric field that is going to tell us who we really are and help us along this process, right? Because there's just going to be so much that happens this year There's going to be so much that happens this year, and not the least is going to be a massive change in the economy. I mean, that is along the lines of the nodes, and it's just unavoidable. So we want to have a deeper connection to where we come from so that we can weather the storm. This is exactly where Mercury is today in its retrograde. We want to take the time mentally to, and in our nervous system, to really assess what it is that we are going to do or what we could do in the moment of crisis. Now, this showing that the crisis in some ways is already past. Excuse me, the Eight of Forces. I think that this is a reference to the narrative pivoting, especially in the UK. Excuse me. Thank you. In the UK, where they've, done away with all of their mandated stuff. So the Eight of Forces, the crack, of lightning, and it splits the tree, but it's been a storm a long time. When this is reversed, it's suggesting that it's already happened and that we're moving on, right? We're moving on. We're putting down new roots. And I would also... putting down new roots, we're moving on, right? We're cleaning up after the main event or whatever. And this is where the attention is right now. And based on what is surrounding it, that's where I'm getting my read here, that this is where our attention is, but it is kind of a trap still. And it's functioning in a way that is dumping people out of their self-imposed prisons as well. So we'll get more into that, because I think that the honeybee as well is a very good aspect to address. But the storm's over. We are moving on. We're cleaning up after ourselves in some ways. And that seems very interesting, considering the fact that where we're drawing a lot of our power from is this very deep dive. So where do we see this ending up, right, is the Eon, or Judgment, right? Number 20. XX. The Eon, right? It is the Judgment card. It is the Phoenix emerging, right? You see that there's the archway that looks kind of like space. It's all dark. And you see Horus in the back, or Osiris. I always get them. I know who they are, but who's wearing the bird head? Thoth. There's a lot of crossover here that I get confused about. And but then you see the silhouette of the child, right? The female. She looks female. Female child that has kind of the snake here, and she's got the finger up to her mouth, like she's very innocent. And there is a turning over of some sort of event, or this is redemption and hope, but it also is the ending of a cycle. And in the addition, or the original Rider-Waite, this is the Judgment card, right? This is the rapture, the judgment, but it's really about liberation, and it's really about cycles coming to a close and starting over. And the Eon, it really is, like moving into the next age, which is Aquarius. But the Phoenix emerging aspect and the liberation as a result of the destruction is a really big part of this card as well, and that it's timeless, and that it is a cycle that continues over and over. Now, we've talked about this because of the eclipse cycle, right? The eclipse cycle being very much about this type of emergence, and literally emerging from these months here leading up to May of 2022, emerging as, transformed or transfigured or transmuted, however you want to look at it. This is what to expect. Now, this does imply that you have to burn it down in order to get the fire. In order to emerge as the Phoenix. You don't get to emerge as the Phoenix without completely deconstructing your molecular structure and reforming it out of the ashes of where you've come from. So that's also something to and this gives me the feeling here of this silhouette, which is it's not fully realized yet, right? It's a silhouette. It's a hologram still. It hasn't, it's in the ether. It hasn't materialized quite yet, but it will. Absolutely, because it's all part of the sacred journey of transformation and what it stands for. So there is a lot of guidance here. We have Michael, Archangel Michael, another 9, right? And then the polar bear as well. Standing up for yourself, having integrity, trusting yourself, not being attached to the outcome as well. I think that's a big one, especially when we're going to be going deeper into the ancient realms here under the Sphinx, right? That we're digging deeper and deeper and deeper, right? We're trying to get past the script that is being presented to us from every angle imaginable and really get at the roots of who we actually are. And that's only going to come through our own experience of it. It's completely experiential. It's not going to come from the internet or me or anyone else. It's going to come from our own process. So Michael, this is just to support the divine channel of power, the heart here, really supporting and protecting ourselves and those who can't protect themselves. But this is really about having divine power and a lot of courage to go into these areas. And again, no attachment to outcome keeps sticking out, right? We may not like what we're discovering, right? We may be horrified what's down there. We may be confused and uncomfortable. We may want to, deny. It happens. That's what happens when you start waking up. It challenges everything that you believed. And so Michael, I think, is just part of, if we have done the work as the Knight of Discs on ourselves, if our own soul growth is the fertile ground that we have been conditioning and working on, then we have had a lot to gain that we can feel into. And there is a lot of courage. And Mars is our courage too, in coming into Capricorn, which is just like, you know what? It's time to get down to business, right? It's time to get down to business and get shit done. And that's what Mars is going to do, right? So no attachment to outcome, though, right? Stand up for yourself, be respectful, and be compassionate, but you don't want to be attached to the outcome. So maybe, too, it's not even about how you feel about it. Maybe you want to share it. Maybe you want to lift up others, right? Maybe your heart is swelling and you want to be, this character for other people. Or exhibit it in some way, and maybe it's just not going to be heard. And this is a big part of what this feels like too at the top here. Is here, I'll show you the polar bear. Stand up for yourself and speak your truth respectfully and compassionately. No attachment to outcome. Because here we have the honeybee, and for all of the hive mind aspect that now has forever been destroyed as anything good, right? It's good for bees. That's how they function, is in the hive, and many other things too. Compassion and forgiveness, right? When you live in that type of reality, you aren't able to be separated from the actions and the outcomes of anybody else in your sphere, in your hive. So if you're compassionate and forgiving in that type of way, then I feel like that everything goes a lot smoother. And the caught in the ruins thing, this is a pretty self-explanatory image, and we've talked about it many times. It's come up in many readings, and this is the same number as the Tower card in the tarot, and like a 10 base tarot. Base 10 tarot, right? So this, and it breaks down to 7 as well, 16 to 7. So we know that there is that adjustment moment, that wild card moment, that fall from grace moment that the Tower represents. But what does it do other than dump us out of our own self-imposed prison and realize that we are actually free? And that's, Uranus and Prometheus, and even the idea of the lightning bolt. You can't predict it, but it certainly can make it discharges all of the unbalanced energy the discharge of energy is what makes the lightning. So the lightning is a expression of balance in a natural way. And so the same thing here is eventually you just get, it'll seem destructive, but what it's doing is, distributing the charge or the balance in the atmosphere. And maybe it's the compassion and forgiveness is for the people that are getting dumped out of their self-imposed prison, right? Or perhaps too, some people are still stuck there and they never made it past the lightning bolt when it was active. And even though now we're kind of cleaning up the mess in some ways, and it does feel like that. I get a sense now that we're kind of in this weird recovery mode from the last 2 years of just like anticipation, and now we're at this point and it's like it's not that nothing has happened. Lots and lots of things happened, but it's not the narrative. The narrative is, it's like the 2D film strip keeps shorting out, or the hologram keeps shorting out, right? And so we have to rely on ourselves now, and not everybody has managed to make it to that point. And now that we're kind of I wouldn't say on the other end, but there's this sense here that, there is like, okay, we can move on now. Somebody, what did they say? Somebody I was talking to said, false levity, right? It's a false sense of security in order to, kind of do this, keep people stuck here. Right? And so we can have compassion and forgiveness for those people and just lighten up a little bit about it, because the emergence of will still inevitably need to come from some sort of destructive moment in order for the phoenix to emerge. And that's still, I think, on its way, very much so. But at this, the liberation and redemption part that is most exhibited by this card, or the eon, as we shift over into a new eon and shift over to like almost like a clean slate. It does seem like that if you've done this work, right, and you are very sensitive to what has been accumulated and gained in the moment here, there is liberation and redemption. There is this opportunity of emergence that is on its way. But we do need to keep ourselves, I would say, finding a sense of rootedness or power in something that is not being presented to us. Has to be experiential. There's no substitute for it. And until people are able to collectively do that individually, and then we link up through that, then people are going to still be caught here, right? And I think a lot of people are still caught here and don't realize it, and many of us are still caught here and don't realize it either. So we have to be easy on ourselves and other people, but like I said, the trust and betrayal part becomes much more obvious in the 8th house in Scorpio. So that's something that we're going to address tomorrow, because that Scorpio moon is going to square the Aquarius sun that is way more having us focused on the transpersonal responsibility that we have to just play our role within this thing. And so interesting times, let's just put it that way. So I'm going to move over to the chat here real quick and see what's going on. How's everyone doing? If you have any feedback about the reading, I haven't really felt necessarily called to pull any cards lately. And even today, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it or not. But I didn't know if I wanted to do it. But D right here was just like, I don't know, but D up here was just like, yes, it's time to start pulling cards again and get these juices flowing as well, and add the visual aspect to a lot of the transmission again, because it brings up a lot. And the tarot can be used in a very nefarious way, and I think a lot of people open doorways and portals well before they are capable of handling them. And me too, I've done it as well. I mean, and you learn by doing it, and thankfully many of us didn't have to learn the hardest way by going into these realms. But the tarot can certainly be used as a portal or a doorway for aspects that we don't necessarily want around or aren't really here to be part of our highest good. So I've been very cautious lately, but I also do trust my own. Ability to filter out and to know what, the voice that is my higher self and is truly allowing a direct connection to source, and what is fear, what is just my ego talking, and certainly what is other influences that are trying to come through, because games and stuff are a part of the fifth house. And this is where, Leo and the fifth house and the Kundalini as well, this is where it can all go sideways if you are not careful. Gambling and games and the Ouija board. These are all fifth house type of things. Well, the Ouija board is kind of like, kind of the eighth house type of thing, but to even play with a Ouija board to begin with comes out of the fifth house of just like, let's take a risk, let's try this thing out. And so I've been very cautious lately and really wanting to not shut this particular channel, not this aspect down entirely, but I just wanted to kind of give it a rest and see what it felt like to come back to it after really taking some time to just let it be for a little while and see what happens. And it feels exactly the same as it always has. So I think that it'll be okay to reinstitute it back into the process. So it's really just meant to be a tool, right? An extra tool to bring forward what we all are holding ourselves. We don't need anybody else to tell us. We don't need anything else to bring it forward. We don't need any saviors. We certainly want to take care of each other, and that's important. And that just because there are influences that want to support and help us doesn't mean that they're trying to be a savior. And understanding the difference is also going to be really, and I think is going to be very essential as we move into possibly some level of disclosure. ET disclosure. So again, knowing the difference, right? Because it's not going to be as black and white as we think it may be. You know what I mean? It's not like they're all here to hurt us. They're all here to deceive us, or they're all here to help us, right? There are lots, there's too many influences that are as diverse as life itself. So, it's being able to tap into the source of that is really, really important as we go forward. So it's a weird day, guys. I know the lull. Some people are temporarily paralyzed by the change in narrative, a wake-up moment. That's a really good, I like that. I like that a lot. And lulled to sleep, back to sleep, or some people might also be caught there because they're expecting something to unfold in a certain way and keep getting promised it or something. And they may be caught in that particular aspect, right? Cult of personality, a specific agenda that they're just holding out for it to be, true. And it's always delayed, right? And who knows what's going to happen. But I do feel like the lull, right? And of just being like, well, is it over? Right? And I would say it's over when the people say it's over, and not when, certain people who have, come into a position of power, when they say it's over. If we continue to allow that dynamic to happen, then what's the point of any of it, right? Like, they don't make the decisions for us, right? They are put into a position to execute and administer, all of the logistics of a society. reality. That's their job, not to be our rulers. So if we can continue to live in that reality, then, or if we continue collectively to stay on that, stay on that tip, then nothing has changed, right? We're just waiting for somebody else to tell us what we should or shouldn't do, or what is and isn't, right? This is, again, I mean, it all comes back down to this very simple aspect about trust yourself, trust your higher self. The path to holiness begins right in front of you. It's not outside of you. It is your experience from in here to right in front of you. And there's something about Black Moon Lilith that is really important that has just been sticking to me all morning, that something much deeper that we feel compelled to act out of protective mechanism of some sort, right? So I think that, time will tell, as it always does. The proof is in the pudding. We will find out as things go along, right? Because being lulled to sleep is such a strategy, isn't it? All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there today, my friends. Thank you. Let's see what else we got over here. Reaffirms the deep diving over appeasing others right now. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See, this is what I was talking about with the snow. I was like, I want to go anywhere. And when it snows like this, I'm just like, oh, I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck, right? Like, I'm lucky if I leave my pajamas when it's like this. And I do feel like that, yeah, the deep dive. Mercury in retrograde, it's been, it's going to go back into Capricorn this week. And it's going to meet Pluto before it stations direct. Like, it's going to go back and into the underworld with Pluto in terms of getting a firsthand look at what Pluto is doing again, right? And meeting up with Pluto again and being like, oh, that's what's happening. And then bringing it back into the Aquarian realm later. And so, and Venus and Mars are going to be in a conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius. Venus and Mars are going to be in a conjunction at 17 degrees Capricorn, like right around February. Whew. That's that time frame, Super Bowl into Valentine's Day, and that conjunction of Venus and Mars at that time, man, something's going to really break loose around that time. And we've been talking about that for a long time. So it's just building and building. And so I feel, again, the best thing you can do is utilize this time with Mercury retrograde to go back over and really, really tune into your nervous system and how it is responding to the collective. Because I think you'll get a lot of information that you can then take forward moving into the spring, right? Because we still have to get through March and April and into May, and oh my. Then we have a new eclipse season, then we have the solstice, and then we have the second half of 2022, which I haven't even really dug into that much yet, so I'm looking forward to actually doing that. So anyway, my friends, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you are interested in a reading, I just put out a sale for starseed readings at a super discount. So if you're interested in that, you can find the flyer on Telegram. You can sign up for my mailing list, although I already sent out the email. So the best thing you can do is go to my Telegram channel for Catalyst Energies so you can see the flyer. But basically 30-minute reading, starseed reading for $44. A 60-minute reading for $77, and then Reiki add-ons to any service are at a super discount too. So you can go to my website. Everything you need is in the description box below. So you can go to my website. You can go to Telegram. That's the only social media I'm active on. And you can certainly support this work through Subscribestar. I really appreciate everyone doing whatever they can, subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing, and of course going to Subscribestar and supporting me for $3 a month to keep this information and this content as is, right? I really want to continue making this available, and your subscriptions and your patronage actually really support that process and also is an investment into yourself. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll do some astrology, and take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Have a blessed day. And gosh, what else could I possibly say that I haven't said already to you guys? I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.